Kathryn Ritchie, would you join us? Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome. I have some photographs to show you, so I'll just put those there for now. And I thought of one more picture that's going to be on my phone, so I might just send my phone around. So I was talking with this guest here, and she told me something. I thought, oh, I have a picture for that. So a few days ago, I was in the car with my husband going downtown to Houston Medical District because I have an inner ear issue, and I was going to a neurosurgeon. And my husband said, "How are you feeling? Are you afraid? Like, how are you?" Because I wasn't saying anything. I was just sitting there. And I said, "You know what? I don't think I'm afraid. If I die, I'll just go to heaven. I know I'm going to heaven. I'm grieving about the possibility of something would be terrible, that I wouldn't be with my children." But I said, "You know what? I'm really just stewing over here thinking I'm going to go into this neurosurgeon who I've never met before, and I'm going to have to sit there and try to prove that my symptoms are real and that I'm not crazy. And I don't want to have to do that. I don't know if this guy's going to believe me, if he's going to say you're just a crazy 43-year-old woman that's making this stuff up." That's what's really bugging me. I want to get back to that, why that was bugging me so much. When I was 18, my family lived in Moscow, Russia. My parents were parents at an orphanage there, missionary parents. And I was a ballerina. I was just starting my freshman year of college there. I just kind of had my whole life ahead of me, and I had plans of what I was going to do. The great thing is I think I've done none of those things, and I'm glad I haven't, but I had plans. And so I just lived my life, and God was kind of in a section of it, and then I had ballet, and then I had this and that, and I was just probably a very typical teenager. That changed on October 2nd, 1999, when my sisters and I went out of the orphanage and just went across the street, like literally just across the street from the orphanage. We were standing on a bus stop, and a drunk driver just swerved off the road. He had been in an argument with his 15-year-old son and left the house, or actually his office. He was the president of a record company in Moscow, and was just drinking and left and just started driving pretty purposelessly, and drove into the bus stop and hit my sisters and me. And one sister was yanked out of the way, and my sister Christy was thrown one direction into a pole, and she died instantly. And I was thrown the other direction. And I just I remember looking at my bus ticket, actually thinking, is this bus ticket old? Because I don't want to go to Russian jail. Like, you really don't want to go to Russian jail, let me tell you. And I thought, I don't know if I'm supposed to be using this bus ticket. And that's the last thing I remembered. I think looking at that likely saved my life because of the way I was turned right then. And I was thrown and landed on my face. That's a long story of healing spiritually, healing emotionally, as I gave up my dreams to be a ballet dancer. You can see I still have scars from where I had bone graft surgery, and a year after my legs weren't healing, so they eventually had to do bone graft surgery. A lot of physical healing. But over the years, as I healed physically and I looked better, I don't have a hinge bone on one side of my face. I've learned how to use my face without feeling in parts of it. And I've done a lot of physical growth. Something was wrong with me, and yet I couldn't prove it. And I would go from doctor to doctor telling them my troubles, and they would look at me like I were crazy. And I remember that little drawing of no energy. That was me when I was in my 20s. I'd had some amazing opportunities. I worked for a congressman for a few years in D.C. I worked at the Heritage Foundation. I worked at Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church, a great church in South Florida, for 5 years. I went to seminary when I was down there. I got 2 seminary degrees. I mean, I did a lot of great things. On a resume, it looked pretty good. But in my own life, I was literally coming home from work and crawling across the floor. When I got married, I spent a lot of the honeymoon sick. actually the morning of my wedding, I was in urgent care because I was just so physically ill. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. I went to Mayo Clinic. I think that was my husband's first introduction to like, you really married somebody crazy, because we hopped around for 5 days, me telling my story of what was going on, and yet, well, didn't really have an answer. Yes, you're in menopause and you're in your 20s. You could try this, that, but I left hopeless. I really left hopeless from Mayo Clinic, the best of the best, right? I went to Georgetown. I went to 50 doctors, just hearing I was crazy. I think that's why I was so worried that neurosurgeon, who ended up being fantastic, and he has a great plan for my inner ear mess, but so he wasn't like that. But I think I have that fear, like, oh no, they're going to think I'm a crazy person, just like they did for so many years. So one of the things they said is I would likely never have children because I was going into menopause when I was in my 20s. And I really struggled with that. I thought, you've taken away my dream of being a ballet dancer. You've taken my dream of being an overseas missionary because I'm not strong enough to live overseas. I know I can trust you, but I don't understand what you're doing. The only thing I really wanted to do in life was just to be a mom. I always kind of was just very different, I guess, than my sister, who's a teacher at a big university. I just kind of wanted to be a mom and homeschool and play Play-Doh. That's really what I wanted to do. And you're even taking that from me. God, I don't understand. And I was speaking at a conference in Oklahoma City a bunch of years ago, soon after I'd gotten married, and I almost passed out at the conference. It turned out I had an ovarian cyst rupturing, which was another thing. I kept having rupturing cysts, and I would go to the ER, and they'd say, well, I don't know, maybe you're constipated. What? I mean, the things that I heard, it just meant so much that my husband was alongside me, reminding me, because I started to think I was crazy sometimes, after you hear it so often. At that time, I had heard about Hotze because my father he has this thing for airline magazines. He loves airline magazines. I don't want to touch them because you know how many people probably touch it. But he always says, bring me an airline magazine. And so he has this collection that I'm going to throw away someday when he dies. But right now, it's this huge collection of airline magazines. And so it's just one of those things. I grab the magazine, put it in my bag. God even works through airline magazines, because my dad was flipping through this gem that I got him on Southwest Airlines or United or wherever I was. And he called and he said, there's this great place called Hotze, and I think they can help you. And I said, yeah, I don't think they can help me. Nobody can help me. And I don't want to go to another doctor. And I literally said to hear that I'm crazy. But after I almost passed out there, we're still living in Florida. We just happen to live here in Houston now, even though it's just kind of just not connected to Hotze. We just ended up here for my husband's work. My husband said, you're not flying back to Florida. You're going to Houston. And we called, and they had a space available for me right away. I came here, and the first time in my life, I felt like I was treated like a person. And you listened, and you gave me hope. And you even said that the doctor, the one who first met with me, is not here anymore, but she said, I don't see any reason why you couldn't have children. And that was a little bit too much, because I can't hope that. But I can hope that I won't be crawling around on the floor in pain and tiredness and wake at 2 a.m, but exhausted at 2 p.m. Like, I could hope for that. I don't know if I could hope for children. So we were actually working on adopting from Poland. And I became pregnant with my first child. And then I became pregnant with another. I have 7 kids. And I would keep going, but I think I'm a little old at this point. But we have 7 children now. And it was just, we call them our Hotze babies. And my husband says, you got to be careful how you say that. That's kind of weird. But we named the last one's named Stephen, after Dr. Hotze, a great proclaimer of truth in the Bible and a great proclaimer of truth here. We are so grateful for all that y'all have done. And as you were talking about all those things, I thought, I have a testimony for that and that and that and that. I could go on for hours, just as I know you could too. But for the first time, I feel very empowered in my health. I feel like when I first came, I was in my 20s, and I'd hear about like going into menopause, and well, technically I kind of was at that time, but I'd hear about midlife, and I think, oh, that's a long, long way from now. And now I look in the mirror and I tell my husband, how did I get so old? Like, how did that happen? All of a sudden we're here. We're like middle aged. And so many of my friends I hear at church or, on Facebook or wherever, oh, I'm just having these health problems, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not. Or if I am, I know what to do. I feel empowered here. Or I can call. And I've called with some very weird questions. And you haven't laughed at me, at least not until you hung up, maybe. But I feel like I have a place to go. And I have answers. And sometimes I feel overwhelmed. Like I tried to do yeast-free. My husband successfully did yeast-free again. He does it every year. Where for 3 months he didn't eat any of the yummy things. And he's actually in the car. He drove me. He's on a work call in the car. But if you saw him, he looks amazing. He's taking charge of his health and eating well and taking care of himself. But I got overwhelmed this spring with keeping up with my kids and trying to not eat all the stuff, and then I wasn't eating at all. And I've learned for me in my stage to like look at those lists, to look at what I can do right now, and I can take the vitamins, I can do the yogurt, and maybe different season I can do this or that, but like I'm learning to keep the balls going and not be so overwhelmed of all the health things I should do all the time, but do what I can do. And that's just so empowering instead of being so overwhelmed with all the health information all of the time. And even as I was driving there, he said, you need to stop putting that sugar in your coffee every day. I said, look, I don't eat cookies anymore. I don't eat candies anymore. I know, but you would just feel so good if you take out that one last. So I want to show you one other picture, though. Sorry, this is just kind of a random mess of things I wanted to share. But as I was talking with you about allergies, my son Edmund, he's when they're the second boy with I think the checkered or plaid shirt. He's almost 10, and he has a whole nother story, so I don't have time for all of it. But when he was born, there were some issues that he just wasn't well. He was my smallest baby. He was 8'1". My largest was 10'4". I didn't know that my husband's side of the family had big babies until my first one was born natural. I've done them all natural, but I kind of wish I would have known about that before. I don't know. It was like 9'8" or 9'7", and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty normal for Richie. So now he's that tall, and he just turned 13, taller than me now. But anyway, my son Edmund is 10, almost 10, and he had a lot of health issues. And then he started getting eczema all over, and his doctor said, oh, just give him steroids, which actually he became addicted to. That's a long, long story, but then it just destroyed his gut, destroyed his skin. That he was, I don't know if y'all can see, and that was just kind of a typical day there or here, but that was over his whole body. So when Mr. Parker first came, I remember you said something like, I'm having a hard time finding a patch of skin that we can do the test on that's not covered with eczema. This was 2 years ago. It just happened to be the picture I found right away as I was sitting here. He's holding Mr. Parker's allergy solution there. He's very, very proud of it. He takes it every 10 weeks. He has no more eczema. He's a happy little boy. He's not screaming anymore. I used to hold him down at night because he'd just wail. He keeps up with the other children now. He's growing better now. It's changed his whole life, and we're forever grateful. He's still, every time he gets those drops, though, he's like, sure they didn't put a needle in it that time. And he's still afraid of needles. But now he's at the point he can just take them in his mouth, and there's no needles, and he's okay. He's also, it's training his body not to react to food. So not only is it protecting him, someone gave him a little dairy not long ago, and he got a little bit of hives, but he didn't go full anaphylactic. We were running him to the ER, and that's what it was like. Very scary before y'all helped him. So I guess that's really all I had to share. Just I so encourage you to give this a try. I know it's different than many doctors. yeah, I just honestly hadn't been sure when I walked in what it would be like. But it changed my life. And I know that it can change all of your lives. And I'm glad to talk more with you. And I know they are as well after if you have any questions about our stories. Thank you, Dr. Ellsworth, for everything that you've done.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate y'all.